Good morning, everyone. If I can just ask everybody to take a seat, and we will begin momentarily as everybody kind of gets settled and finds their way into this beautiful, beautiful room. Thank you so much for coming today. My name's Annalise Balsamo. I'm the English Curriculum Manager at the VCEE, and I'm your MC for today. As we begin, I would like to acknowledge country. We meet today on the lands of the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation and pay our respects to elders past and present, and to any First Nations people joining us today. I want to acknowledge that First Nations people told the first stories on this land and continue to tell the stories today. The stories you will hear at this Top Scribe launch take their place in a powerful tradition of storytelling. We know that stories reflect us and that stories open us to the experiences and the lives of others. We know that stories build understanding and empathy, compassion and connection. We hope we will always tell stories and that we will always hear stories on this land. Today, we celebrate the publication of the 2026 Top Scribe Anthology. It's my pleasure to be emceeing this event. We're so incredibly proud to be publishing Top Scribe again this year following the inaugural edition in 2025. This is like Christmas Day for me. This is my baby. I couldn't be more thrilled. The works published in the Top Scribe Anthology were selected by a panel from nearly 200 pieces submitted by the VCE Literature students of 2025. As chair of the selection panel, I had the pleasure of reading all the submissions and to enjoy many, many insightful, well-written and crafted and thought-provoking pieces. It was an incredibly hard task for the panel to narrow down so many high-quality applications to the 25 works comprising this year's anthology, and I extend my congratulations to the students who have been selected. Your writing captured, inspired and delighted us. You should all be incredibly proud. But I'd also like to thank deeply and congratulate all the teachers who have guided these young writers in their work. Without them, these young people wouldn't be here. A range of forms are represented in the anthology, including poetry, fiction and plays, and works that embraced a hybrid form. These works all demonstrated excellence in the use of text structures and stylistic features that reflect the original text, an exploration of ideas drawn from the original text, and an arresting point of view or perspective. These are the skills that VCE Literature students learn and that the anthology is designed to showcase. From today, this anthology will be available to the 2026 VCE Literature cohort, and we hope it will support, guide and inspire students and teachers as they approach the creative response task in Unit 4. In this area of study, that is Unit 4 Outcome 1, Creative Responses to Texts, students respond creatively to an existing text selected from the VCE Literature text list. This outcome provides a wonderful opportunity to analyse the impact of form, feature and language in the creation of meaning and to convey understanding of the ideas through a creative response. One of the selected texts many of the 2025 cohort engaged with through this area of study was the witty short story compilation Smart Ovens for Lonely People by Elizabeth Tan. Elizabeth Tan is a writer who lives in Boorloo, Perth. Her first book, the 2017 Novel in Stories rubric, was the culmination of a creative writing PhD project. Smart Ovens for Lonely People was her second published work in 2020. That year, it won the Readings Prize for New Australian Fiction. Her more recent work have appeared in Kill Your Darlings, The Griffith Review, Westerly and Liminal. While she could not be here in person today, Elizabeth wanted to pass on her congratulations to our published authors and will now play her a video message that she recorded for us.
Hello, thank you for having me today. I'm joining you from the place that I grew up calling Perth, but this place has been and will continue to be known as Wajak Budja and Bulu for much, much longer. I pay my respects to the Wajak people of the Noongar Nation and to elders past and present. I also pay my respects to the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation, along with any First Nations people present at the Top Scribe launch. Congratulations to the 25 writers whose works have been selected for the 2026 Top Scribe Anthology. I've had the pleasure of reading this anthology over the past week, often during my mornings, and on several occasions I found myself, as I was going about my day, mulling over a work, smiling at a delicious plot turn, or searching for more information about the real figure or event at the heart of a story. What strikes me about the works in this anthology is the sincere care with which students have treated the original texts. They've not held the author's works at arm's length nor propped them up on a high pedestal, but have met them where they were, with an eye-to-eye respect. It's impossible for me to ignore my own position in all of this as an author who's had the privilege for the last few years of having my own collection of short stories on the VCE Literature text list. For all the absurdity and playfulness of many of the stories in Smart Ovens for Lonely People, I think like all writers, I yearn to be taken seriously, for my work not just to be one big joke, but a genuine attempt to engage with the world, to find a reader who says, yes, I get this, in the best way I know how, with the literary devices I've learned to use. It is gratifying and exciting to see students adapt these devices to say things that I don't have the necessary perspective to say or imagine. This experience reminds me that literature is a community garden that we all take from and add to as responsibly and authentically as we can, and no one gardener is more or less important than any other gardener. Top Scribes, I hope that on your journey so far, from reading your set text with sincere care, from committing the first words of your own work to the page, to holding this anthology in your hands today, that you feel that you've been taken seriously too. Someone read your work and thought, yes, I get this. In William Janat's Nature versus Nurture, A Story of Man's Psyche, a response to Kate Holden's The Winter Road, the final scene envisions Kate Holden opening a box of copies of her newly published book, surrounded by the sprawl of sticky notes and documents that helped her write it. But what Kate's eye is drawn to instead is a bent stick that her son brought in from a walk that morning, lying across the table. Your writing will not thrive in a pristine, sealed room. The outside light, the words and proclivities of others, the land, all this must enter too. Whatever specific path you take from here, whether it's studying at university, attending writing workshops, reading and contributing to your favourite lit journal, joining or forming a writing group, my hope for you is that you will continue to practice care, to treat other people's words seriously and to have your own words taken seriously in return, to notice the bent stick on your table. When the validations of earning a good grade, having your work published, or winning an award ebb and flow throughout your writing life, it is that bent stick, that sense of responsibility and connectedness to the outside that will keep you grounded. Thank you to the VCAA for selecting Smart Ovens for Lonely People for study and for inviting me to speak today. Thank you to the literature teachers for guiding your students so thoughtfully. And thank you and congratulations again to all the writers in the Top Scribe Anthology. I hope you have a wonderful celebration today. Take care.
I must confess I had to watch that video a number of times so I wouldn't cry in front of you all today. It's a very beautiful connection, I think, between a published writer and young people in this room today in a heartfelt way. Her referencing to the works, her ability to speak directly to you, that's a gift, and I hope that you take that with you as you leave. We're so pleased to be joined today by many of the Top Scribe 2026 authors, some of whom will be reading today for us. It's my pleasure now to begin to welcome them. And the first of our 8 readers to the stage is Isabella Cordes Komaniki, who studied at Salesian College Sunbury on Wurundjeri country. Isabella will be reading her poem, The Spirit Crossing, written in response to W.B. Yeats's poem selected by Seamus Heaney. Please welcome Isabella.
Through the greenwood hush she passed, bare and blistered feet, darkened by that dampened dirt, her flesh exposed, her hair with no prose. Here she moves towards her last breaths. But unlike those years of limbs, love and loathes, here alone, no beasts but her own, no eyes to observe her, only a quiet row of primrose. With lips as pale as pressed petals, and the evening's growing mist, she thought of the love once blooming in her breast. At her knees the bluebells swayed, and through the oaks the breeze brushed, its mellow ballad a faint whisper. Yet in that song no sorrow had part, for death had gentled in her heart. In a final gust she felt a tender reminder, that girlhood flame, once akin to a shame, now a memory between her and the towering oaks, with their moss-clad arms and twisted roots. At an alt she feels a force. Stop now, you have followed your course. Not claimed by death, but companioned to it, here in the peaceful land of the lucky. A soul will be received, a permanent parting. No longer will the spirit bear the markings of a woman's life endowed with mire and takings. Here she settles, both her mind and matter, to lie down and die, to let this body be ephemeral. With a sharp, cold breath, her aged lungs fill. With a force not of her own, her ribs contract and her limbs flex. The rich soil beneath, cold and dense. No thoughts acknowledge the pain. The mind seems to have slipped from its throne. In this force she feels the energy, an electricity stirring within. Lips aged and dry move by instinct, parting way as the body softens. Muscles lose their static, the smothering silence returns. The veil between flesh and spirit has thinned. In its release, a gentle silver shape, emerging from its lifeless harbour. In that damp evening air, an ethereal glow, a soul, its body off, transcending to its final form. No god, no man can see her here, a liminal space for the untethered, she in the trees, oh, and that gentle breeze. Away from her mortal vessel she weaves, over clefts and stones and the pillows of primrose. Through a sun-spotted passage she passes, and just beyond that golden air, a soft-spoken river lay lapping. To and fro the water flowed. On its sunless surface, a compelling wave. It beckoned her forward. Go on, be brave. Beyond the bank, eternity blossomed, bright and outstretched, a new day's dawn. Like a gentle breeze, she crosses in her own. In that final stage, she is sure and true. The mire of bodily past no longer a weight. With her soulful shimmer she passes through. No more beast, tamed by no god or his men. Only she and nature, one energy intertwined. No grave to bind her, nor can the hours confine. She moves with the rivers, endless and divine.
So beautiful, the mind slipping from the throne. Oh, chills. Thank you so much. Our next reader today is Phoebe Houlihan, who studied at Genazzano FCJ College on Wurundjeri country. Phoebe will be reading an extract from her creative piece titled You Better Run, You Better Take Cover, Australia Day 2025 Remix, written in response to Elizabeth Tan's Smart Ovens for Lonely People. Please welcome Phoebe.
A boy crouches by the rock pools, listening intently as the starfish keeps talking. The starfish says they came once, that they picked up bottle caps in high-vis vests while filming it for Instagram, calling themselves environmentalists and saying they'd save the turtles. The boy doesn't know what the word means, environmentalists. It sounds important, and it has something to do with turtles. The boy likes turtles. His favourite is Squirt from Finding Nemo. He keeps listening anyway because he thinks maybe he's meant to, because the starfish sounds sad and he wants to help. The starfish says they never came back. They never returned. A lot of people never returned, like their jobs were disposable, like the necessity of it was disposable, like the environment was disposable, like the beach was disposable, like the starfish was disposable. The starfish says maybe it is disposable. The starfish says again that it wants to be disposed. The starfish says that its home is gone and it wants to go with it. The boy doesn't move. He wonders if holding the starfish tighter might help. His chest feels funny, like he swallowed a wave. He doesn't know what to say, only that he wants the starfish to feel better. His grandma once told him to be gentle with things that are hurting. So he stays, just holding it, hoping that's enough. The beach was no longer busy. The sun still rose and fell, but the crowds had thinned, retreating like a tide reluctantly pulled back. What remained was a graveyard of forgotten flags, crushed by plastic cups and half-melted sparkles caught in the hair of seaweed, relics of a noise no longer heard. The sand lay mottled with the ghosts of laughter, now replaced by the hush of wind dragging cellophane skins across the shattered shells. The day after always had a sameness to it, not silence exactly, but a different sound. A battlefield of waste, a toxic museum curated by careless hands. Plastic bottles, glazed, salted, and weathered shy, bobbed in the shallows like sad little boats, long disowned. Straws curled underfoot, half buried like brittle bones, indistinguishable from the sticks and broken coral they imitated. The beach, once a cradle for life, now cradled things it never asked for. Footsteps still came, trampling fragile edges of a memory and meaning. They brought towels, folding chairs, and umbrellas that bent in the wind. They trailed sunscreen and crumbs and half-listened conversations. They came as if the coast could still bear them, as if its edges weren't fraying. The land bore it again and again, not just this beach but others, not just this summer but all the ones before and after it. Forests were thinned, wetlands pressed into silence, rivers named and then forgotten. Each return took something small. Some days you could almost hear the subtraction. And if this kept on, if the pace of forgetting didn't slow, if the reckless tide of neglect and indulgence didn't turn, the sky might start saying no. The rain might come back wrong, not to cool but to corrode. It might sting. The earth might crack open beneath the plastic's weight. The oceans might stop forgiving. Not all endings roar, some slip in quiet. A kind of ecocide that doesn't announce itself, just accumulates. The beautiful things wouldn't vanish in a flash, but in a fade, like the sun slipping behind smog-heavy clouds. Already they were dimming, like light seen through gauze. The waves that once sang with salty joy now moved thicker, their hush woven with cellophane, strangled by discarded ambition. Jellyfish made of bags, coral calcified in fishing line, fish with stomachs packed tight like shopping tills, bottle caps for coins. You better run, you better take cover, the wind whispered, carrying the refrain of a song once meant for dancing, now twisted into a warning. Yesterday there had been a boy, a starfish. They had shared something that hovered between speech and silence, an understanding, a communion not made less sacred by words. The starfish had said many things, but it was the quiet between them that lingered, a quiet that felt like knowing. They had no answers, only time, and the kind of stillness that doesn't last. The sea would go on. The waves would keep folding themselves into the shore, rolling tired, relentless, automatic and indifferent, but beneath the surface, thick with poison, they would be choking. The beauty of the world was already a fragile antithesis, a sad song half sung. It was a story written in sand, soon to be washed away, not by tides of water, but by tides of neglect. And the world kept turning, numb to the subtraction, blind to the pulse slipping away beneath the plastic skin.
Thank you so much, Phoebe. So beautiful. That image of the boy's chest hurting as he swallowed a wave, as if Oh my gosh, that stays with me. What did you discover about the original text with your creative engagement with it?
While creatively engaging with the original text, I discovered how Elizabeth Tan embeds political ideals and concerns while within a seemingly narrative and whimsical, okay, let me restart that. Okay. Through my creative engagement with the original text, I discovered how Elizabeth Tan is able to embed political ideas and concerns within a seemingly ordinary and whimsical narrative. She does this through treating the impossible as natural, which I tried to emulate by having the starfish speak about ecocide. This allowed me to discover how Tang uses magical or surreal elements not for fantasy itself, but to expose real social concerns in a way that feels more intimate and affecting than a direct argument, encouraging readers to focus on the ideas being explored rather than the mechanics of the fantasy.
Wow. Thank you so much. Thank you. Our next reader is Charlize Chen, who studied at Gwen Waverley Secondary College on Wurundjeri country. Charlize will be reading her piece, Die Like a Kelly, written in response to Robert Drew's Our Sunshine. Please welcome Charlize.
Mind you die like a Kelly sun. The words echo off the stone walls, a mantra of pride, of courage, of defiance. He raises his head, inclining it ever so slightly back down. A nod, a slight lift of the side of his mouth. I leave. I was the fourth of 11 children. Not the youngest, but not the oldest either. Funny how being one of the middle ones made me a little less visible, a little less noticed. Don't get me wrong, that ain't a complaint. I was running around the countryside whilst wee Daniel was being bounced on Mum's knee. Never liked school much. Reckon I spent more days out of school than in. Well, I will say, I can't write, but I can read, and that's good enough for me. What's the use in writing anyway, compared to knowing the land, knowing the horses, to being able to ride and feel the dry, warm air whip across your skin, to knowing that this was in your blood from the very moment you were born? I'd argue that's better, wouldn't you? Wouldn't my sons? Ah well, lived a hard life either way. Writing can't help me when I'm stone broke, got 12 holes in my purse, and not a husband in sight. Wouldn't want a husband, they're all bastards, but the help would be nice. As for the holes, I love them to bits. Annie, Maggie, Dan, Grace, Kate, Ned, Jack, Ellen, Alice, James, and little Ellen. And Mary Jane. I remember the way her body feels in my arms even now, still and cold. Such is life, I guess. Took John too, my Red. Miss him sometimes, even if it was ages ago, before Bill, before George, even if he went to jail and drank and died and left me alone. Even if. Oh, but let's talk about the bastards while we're at it. God, I wish I'd have known better. So, George, that accent, that swagger. Stole a couple horses, but we've all stolen, haven't we? Gave me 3 extra holes. I'm kidding, I love them. I said that, didn't I? And up and left. Well, no, we did marry before that. I suppose that's better than Bill. But first, Alice wasn't even born yet before George disappeared. Now, I've toughed it out, believe me, I have. But it's a lot, you know. And then Dan got arrested, and yes, before you ask, I did take up a spade, try and give Fitzpatrick something to think about. Fly into a rage, wouldn't you have? If you lived my life from beginning to end, wouldn't you be angry? Maybe I ought to have been more careful, though, because then old Fitzpatrick came back and had me arrested. For attempted murder. I'll tell you, I'm a lot of things, but a murderer ain't one of them. A murderer is that creeping in the dead of night, that evil grin and blood-stained fingers. It's that laugh, derisive, prickling all over your skin. A murderer isn't a mother protecting her kids. Who took care of them while I was gone? Ah, that would be Kate and Maggie. I'll forever be grateful. They were only youths themselves, after all. Wish I could have been there. A lot happened while I was locked up. Too much. Maybe if I'd have been there, I'd still have 11 holes in my purse today. Sorry, back to what I was saying. Bill, that lying old. Promised marriage, you know. Had another baby and off he went to God knows where. Child, one day you'll learn that men are as slippery as eels. Learn from my mistakes, eh? Wouldn't give up my children for the world, though, even if they were brought into it by them. Jack, don't know how, he was always on the right side of the law, still is. He was a sweet boy, honest and the like. Managed to escape my temper, the Kelly family's itchy fingers, but that connection to horses stayed. Our family pride. Kate, she's tried her best. Changed her name and all. I don't blame her. The coppers will always be searching for reasons to put us away. Blame it on the Kellys. And Ned, Edward. My boy. Constantly stirring up trouble he was. I saw myself in every inch of him. That passion for riding, that confidence, that sense of adventure. He knew, just as I, just as all us Kellys, that the world does not favour us. Got wrongly accused of plenty, but I guess rightly accused of some. Now, my Ned never meant to hurt anyone, not beyond repair. Things happen, but the press, the police, the people, they'll never try to see it from our side. No, we're monsters until the end of time. I was good while I was in jail, believe it or not. Didn't get into any rages. They let me see him a couple of times, in the hospital and in the cell, and the day before he was hanged. I remember it so clearly. The way he looks, curled, pain in every line in his face. A sorry sight, I'll say. No Kelly leaves this earth like that. I remember the minutes passing in silence. Strange how nothing needs to be said. Remember wondering if he was aching with the weight of everything. The loss, brothers, friends, family. And then the prison guard enters and he's saying, "Time's up." And I'm feeling the seconds stretch out, lying before me like the bodies of all we have lost. I'm thinking, this is it. This is the last time I'll ever see him. But you don't forget something like this so easily. No, I replay this moment so often I question if the details are warped. So, I look at him. Take in his face, his beard. When did my boy become a man? Hunched silhouette, bloodied clothes. Hear his breath, shallow, catching in the throat. Mind you die like a Kelly son.
Astonishing. A true testament to somebody finding a new perspective to tell the Ned Kelly story. Extraordinary, Charlize. Thank you so much. We're going to hear from Claire Williams, who studied at Druin Secondary College on Guinai country. She will be reading an excerpt from her creative piece, Girls Who Are Considered Conventionally Attractive But Too Nerdy to Be Cool, Project Pineapple, written in response to Elizabeth Tan's Smart Ovens for Lonely People. Please welcome Claire.
Girls who are considered conventionally attractive but too nerdy to be cool. Project Pineapple. 2. Girls who are considered conventionally attractive but too nerdy to be considered cool. From blank. Subject. Weekly update. Hello all. This email is sent in regards to the weekly arrival of Friday. It has been recommended to us that a continuous check-in would be beneficial to company morale and productivity. As of Thursday, voting for new office colours concluded. Support was in favour of butter yellow. However, we feel it imposes a liminality on our company's presentation. The butter yellow is concerningly similar to rival agency, popular bleach blonde girls who are not considered anything but cool. Colour palette of baby in the sky yellow. Consequently, we feel the chromatic choice would damage our company's reputation by association of being basic. Refer to Employee Handbook Associations. Hence, we have decided the company walls shall be painted a forget-me-not blue. We are sure that everyone will be complacent in this decision. Once again, Employee of the Month goes to Sarah Geller for her outstanding Instagram March dump and caption creativity. See Employee Handbook Instagram captions. We encourage all to strive to be more like her. Monica Green has been awarded Outsider of the Month due to her aptitude for speaking at a slightly raised decibel when feelings of excitement are present. Her break time has been moved an hour earlier. See attached gossip meeting timetable. In accordance with company policy, any employees who engage with her this moon cycle will be relegated to the first floor. We conclude by thanking all staff for your continued devotion to our company. 2. Girls who are considered conventionally attractive but too nerdy to be considered cool. From blank. Subject, reminder, Instagram songs. Hello all, we just wanted to email a tasteful reminder. It has come to our attention that some of our staff members have posted Instagram stories with songs which are incongruent to our image. The use of rap and overtly derogative songs is strictly prohibited by company policy. See Employee Handbook Musical Attachments. The continued application of such will not be tolerated. For those struggling with musical counterparts to their stories, the below list has been compiled to assist. Number 1, Modern Summer Eclectic Songs. These include Juno by Sabrina Carpenter, Saturn by Caesar, Busy Woman by Sabrina Carpenter, Cruel Summer by Taylor Swift. Number 2, Classic Vintage Mysterious Vibe. These include Knocking on Heaven's Door, Bob Dylan, Love of My Life, Queen, Something, The Beatles, Something Stupid, Frank and Nancy Sinatra. Number 3, Night Owl Party Elegant R&B. These include Coming Down, The Weeknd, Heartless, Kanye West, 505, Arctic Monkeys. And number 4, Golden Retriever Sunday. These include Do I Wanna Know, Hosier, August, Taylor Swift, Someone New, Hosier, or Linger, The Cranberries. The use of violent songs is not conducive to company policy. See productivity stats, musical choice, and performance correlation. It is integral to adhere to set policies. How others perceive us is always the primary priority. Thank you for your cooperation.
How great, amazing example of stylistic innovation. Thank you so much, Claire. Our next reader is Thomas Zhao, who studied at Baldwin High School on Wurundjeri country. Thomas will read an excerpt from his piece, Emperor Wu, written in response to Carol Ann Duffy's The World's Wife. Please welcome Thomas.
I remember that night, alone in the courtyard, stars above, earth below, the wind blows, trees shuffle, the moon shines with her radiance. Nothing moves, except the petals that fall onto this pond, disturbing its peace. It wasn't something new, you know, what I'd done. Countless kings and lords and emperors before me had sullied their hands to get where they were, had ordered with a flick of their finger for other men to kill what they could not. The midnight hour. The stars and moon were constant in their guilty verdict, but the tiled roof shut them out when I stepped inside. She was fast asleep by now, and I could peer down on her one last time in the crib. The heavens and earth held their breath. They didn't stop my hands from shooting forth, finding purchase around the soft ring of her neck, thumbs pressed down, silencing that breath. She hadn't cried or screamed or even flailed. Good, I had thought. That made it easier. And then the world breathed out again. The winds picked up outside, sending the leaves into a frenzy. I moved my hands away from the crib. I tell myself now, envisioning the muddy water running down my back, feeling the uncomfortable warmth of the emperor's overbearing body, imagining the prospect of my daughter wrapped in a man's arms, that those were the thoughts that had filled my mind during the act. But in truth, all I remember is after the fact, staring down at my strangely steady hands. No blood, no visible signs of what they'd done. Did I regret it then? No, not yet. Too trapped in the charade of the next morning, crying, beating my chest, tearing at my hair in front of the emperor, demanding, insisting that it must have been the empress who had murdered my child in a fit, jealous at the way he held my daughter in his arms. Thank the heavens the old fool believed me. Predisposed as he was for a change of taste and a change of wife, at least he was kinder than I'd have been. Only sent her packing into exile for the rest of her life in some faraway town with a son that would grow up to be no better than a blacksmith at best. The thought had made me satisfied at last. The cadaverous man finally croaked it soon after, and like hounds, his many sons came surging to the gates, arrogantly ordering me to hand them the throne, in turn promising to make my next daughter their empress. Their desperation was laughable. No, the palace must be purged of those who'd enable preying on unsuspecting daughters. I took the throne myself, and any son that dared come after was silenced, whether they wanted to be or not. I like to see how they'll protest with no tongue, sent away to some border town or else to the bottom of a river. And those concubines, did they think they could escape too? I had every last son in these palace grounds rounded up and slaughtered, hanged, buried alive, quartered, then cast the women out as commoners. No son, I swore, will ever steal the mandate of heaven from me. Lady of Longing from the Tang Dynasty by Wu Zetian. Red bleeds to grey, thoughts undone, fractured, frayed, longing for you. If you doubt these tears I've shed, unlock this chest, see the silk robe unmade. I remember it being that time of year again, when the ice in the trees was just melting and the clouds rained down their displeasure. My feet were clad in satin silk as they shuffled along the stone path, incessant rain drumming on my oil paper umbrella, while the monolithic lions watched from their stations. I had tried to pull the princess, my second daughter, closer to me, but she quietly struggled free, retreating under the umbrella of the man she'd chosen, her husband-to-be. Of no renown, no lineage, no gold to his name, a newly appointed official, a commoner through and through. I met with his mother once before. Her eyes were not unkind, not cruel, but held mine without a hint of deference. I'd held her hands in mine, feeling the rough calluses on her palm, seeing the prematurely wrinkled skin. These were the hands that had labored, provided, worn through many cycles of rain, and never felt the soft skin of her own child's neck beneath their fingers. I jerked my hands away again. They were trembling, 3 decades too late. Steel after steel, 3 sticks of incense, until we reached the very last in the line, and even as I stepped forward, I was well aware of the eyes of the court on my back. Standing in front of the monument of a man I knew well enough to realize, for certain this time, the reality behind those carved words. Resolute and faithful, fair and just, mighty and powerful. It was an effort to contain the laughter that threatened to escape from my lips. First, however, I walked past that grave, kneeling down before a small, unmarked headstone erected under my orders. Silently, still being watched intently, I plucked the last of the 3 sticks, the incense of humanity, and stuck its end into the dirt, watching it burn for a little while. Then I was up again, had turned my back on it again, and tried to give the first of the 3 incenses, that of heaven, to my daughter for her to offer. She only shook her head, pressing it firmly back into my hand. I didn't even know them. You should have it. We try our best, we mothers, we queens, wielding knives all in the name of our daughters. But when your hands are so steeped in blood, can you wrap them still around her shoulders? There was a new addition to the line, a stone whose unblemished face was adorned with coiling dragons and soaring phoenixes. A retainer approached me, asking hesitantly, "What would you have us write?" I stared at the monolith for a long time. Rain from the heavens rolling down my robe, mud of the earth probing at my shoes, and the expectant gaze of all at what the first and only female emperor of China would leave behind in memorial words. "Leave it blank," I answered at long last. I turned away, unable to meet my daughter's eyes. I walked away from the stone. They can decide my legacy. Here lies.
Thank you, Thomas. Incredible writing. How did you settle on the point of view for this piece?
For me, I think looking at Carol Ann Duffy's The World's Wife, where she takes the fictional or the real partners of many famous men of history and myth, I wanted to approach it with a similar perspective, which is why I took the name of a very famous emperor throughout Chinese history, but one who, despite being very famous and arguably infamous, doesn't have a lot of things that she's left behind. It's a lot of accounts of other people talking about her. So we hear so much about how, benevolent she was, but at the same time how she ruled with an iron fist. And all these contrasting stories sort of, wipe out an imagination of what the emperor could have been like herself. So in this space, I wanted to imagine the voice of an emperor who, is so well known, but has so little left behind to tell her story.
I love that, finding the silent voices and making them sing. Thank you so much. It's beautiful. Our next reader this morning is Trinity Johnson, who studies at Paran High School on Wurundjeri country. Trinity will be reading her poem Ode to Summer Storms in response to Gavin Yuan Gow's At the Altar of Touch. Please welcome Trinity.
Your world is built on bones of the long dead, creatures of the past, sky filled with clouds of smoke, obelisks of the future raking her skin, like the bitter claws of blackberry thickets. My grandmother sits before me, eyes as dark and warm as the soil beneath her nails. She smiles at the pain of remembering a world that is no more. A shard in her heart, ever present, the pool of the river, incessant in its roar. She regales me with the truth of her childhood where the clouds were as dry as the earth, sun beaming, wrathful fire, life persisting on spite alone. She tells me of the sky, clear for days, the stars, more numerous than the arid, husks of failed crops, when the rolling storm clouds forever, gathering dark on the horizon, finally spill. The beating drums of raindrops batter the hard tin roof, gathering puddles leap with the splash of her dance, worshipping the opening heavens. She tells me how she still admires the ravaging storms of her northern home, smiling to the child within, born of a barren earth.
Thank you, Trinity. Astonishing poetry. Thank you so much. Our penultimate reader today is Noam Werner, who studied at Mount Scopus Memorial College on Wurundjeri country. Noam will read an excerpt from his piece Yesterday, written in response to Elizabeth Strout's Olive Kitteridge. Please welcome Noam to the stage.
The cottage settled into its evening quiet as the last light pulled away from the bay. Below, the water lay dark and restless, small waves catching what remained of daylight and throwing it back in fragments. Elias Thorne sat in his threadbare armchair, the old acoustic guitar resting across his lap like a familiar weight. His stiff knuckles, swollen now at the joints, traced the deep grooves worn into the frets. The instrument's once golden wood had dulled to amber, hairline cracks mapping its surface, a geography of age that his fingers recognized without looking. The neck, smooth from decades of his touch, felt warm against his palm, worn to silk by the passage of countless evenings when the silence had needed filling. He tuned each string with deliberate care, counting the turns of the peg, sometimes twice, sometimes 3 times. The ritual had become essential, this careful preparation that preceded their evening solitude. The strings had grown brittle. He'd need to change them. Bath was the only option. 20 minutes of highway he'd rather not drive. Outside, the first foghorn sounded from the bay, its melancholy note drifting through the half-open window along with the salt-heavy air and the distant cry of seagulls setting for the night. His fingers found the opening chord of Yesterday, the F major making his knuckle seize. The melody pulled him backwards, away from the cottage's dim corners and into a brighter time.
Thank you so much, Noam. The power of description, extraordinary. Our final reader today is Layla Muir, who studied at Damascus College on Wurrung country. Layla will be reading an excerpt from her piece, The Fish on the Great Northern Box, in response to Elizabeth Chan, Smart Ovens for Lonely People. Please welcome Layla.
The exit 1 kilometre sign was always met with a haze of fog, the temperature on the dash dropping. A sudden chill seeped in, that distinguishable air brought upon by the height, rolling hills and climbing bushlands. Mine shafts littered the town. He saw a stoic old gum tree and let his thoughts drift. Ready for some company, the father stopped by the general store 10 minutes out from the house. The neon open sign sat quaintly under the blacked out windows with M&M's and Mars logos. Opening the door, the bell chimed, bright and familiar. He stepped inside like someone returning, not entering. The industrial bain-marie saw someone's phone order waiting patiently, potato cakes leaving greasy marks on the brown paper bag they lie within. On top, a shelf of lollies, red clouds coated with a soft sugar, glistened from their clear bags with a childlike wonder, tabbed unevenly by measly red tape. A 4x4 magazine roared the sale line, dust and glory, while a women's weekly cover boasted a rhubarb cheesecake recipe and a feature article on the legacy of Diana. News that seemed as old as his father's exhaustion. He wondered if Diana calmed a loneliness within people, a kindness in her eyes, a gentility in her touch, that handshake in 87. "Ah, hello mate, how are the kids?" A voice carrying a faint Vietnamese accent echoed from behind the counter. "Good, good, and yourself? Keeping well? I mean, slow business is still business, they say." The father knew what he meant, offering a tired smile. It was solemn and articulate, hopeful in a way it didn't deserve to be. Round stickers on the floor urged people to keep their distance, arrows stretching both ways, labelled with an impassive 1.5 metres. Opening the fridge door, the blue tack on the top left corner of the under 18 no supply poster was falling off. The father tucked a slab of Great Northern under his arm and exhaled. Now he could get out, get away, a drowning man clinging to a 24-pack. Buoyant. He scanned through the pasta options, San Remo large shells or black and gold penne. Black and gold was cheaper. He opted for neither. "Ah, the poor man's mistress," Arn quipped, nodding at the beer. "You know it, but hey, at least my mistress is only beer," the father responded with a curt smirk, sitting the slab on the counter so he could get his card out of his wallet. "Well, have a good one, mate. Cheers," the father saluted in goodbye as he made his way back to the car. The box of Great Northern sat in the passenger seat, the fish in the box looking at the father quizzically. Its pointed nose and jagged fins were rather foreboding, but its stature seemed timidly gentle. Perhaps the creative director had read a Substack article on the benefits of empathetic marketing. Perhaps not. "How are you?" the fish asked. "Tired," the father offered. "I see," the fish responded pensively. "Why do you feel that way?" it continued. The father pondered, his mouth opened then closed. Something sealed his lips. What could he say that didn't sound pathetic? "I feel like I don't exist. Everything feels like it just passes by around me." "I see," the fish said, methodically. "I saw a gum tree on the way home," the father admitted in almost a whisper, throat dry as a hay paddock in late December. It was silent for a long moment. "And yet you are still here," the fish said. The fish waited a moment. "Did you know you cannot make old friends?" The father's jaw remained clenched. He knew what the fish meant. Arriving home, the father threw on a worn Kathmandu and pocketed a pack of gold 20s. He walked out past the woodshed, round the back of the water tanks, a mud track from the constant passage of dirt bikes muddying his boots, laces untied. He had barely placed the slab in the corner before he was greeted with a playful slap on the back, Great Northern stubby shoved into his right hand. "Look who it is," the neighbour exclaimed, a low mirth crinkling the corner of his eyes. "Hello, hello." The men exchanged a hug and began trading old regrets. Yellow lights, warmer. A nostalgia merchant envied and yearned for under the glow of white LED, humming quietly overhead like they had every night since '09. Football highlights replaying muted in the background. Brian Taylor was harassing a poor debutante. A meek, dolorous Tupperware bowl with crumbs of Smith's crinkle-cut chips sat on a fold-out table. The father laughed, loud and sudden, like it had ambushed him. Bushrangers country. joyous in his slight haze of fireball whiskey and the company of old friends, because you cannot make those. A dusty fridge tucked in a corner, once a shiny new addition to the kitchen, now rumbling away in the shed built by the hands of the neighbourhood, stocked full of Coopers, draughts, and a corroboration of entrepreneurial pale ales, tinged an odd yellow, an unknown sticky substance revealing its age. A trail of ants marched over its rusted hinges like pilgrims to an altar. Chatter flowed easily. He let the voices wrap around him, a familiar static of harmless arguments and repeated jokes. Most of it was utter shit. We need someone like Bob Hawke, none of this electric car nonsense. Wasn't he a KGB agent? A bowl of peanuts sits discarded. Crumbs of salt and pistachio shells lie gloriously next to a bottle cap. The great northern fish watching the scene carefully. Life stories are repeated, noted inside and out by everyone, though keenly reminisced upon in return for comfort, familiarity, and easy laughter. A promised and inevitable punchline, echoed throughout the years, rears its face and leaves people throwing their heads back in helpless fits. A joke that lacks all substance, thought, or nuance, but fulfills the everlasting joy of familiarity. The guilt and smugness of being small-minded, indulged in with a shit-eating grin. Shame worn with a smile. Town legends, conspiracies, myths of the witch on the hill, whispers of spies lingering in the mountains' bushlands, inaccurate translations of Arabic war rhetoric thrown towards the staffy who had just begun licking the top of someone's unfinished stubby. The folklore of drunks and granddads told and retold until nobody could tell if any of it was true, or cared. He'd lost his melty, Masked Crusader was scratched, and the three-leg reallocation was hopeless. The federal anti-gambling ad flashed across the television. You win some, you lose more, felt like a punchline itself. Bit late now, isn't it? He muttered at the screen. The ad's deterrence capabilities were about as effective as alcohol in numbing a lonesome malaise, the two with an efficiency equating to the rousting communal unity seemingly prompted by the government's logically contradictory lockdown slogans. Staying apart keeps us together. Teams meetings in quarantine, miserable ads and beyond blue PowerPoints, about as hollow as a rotten tree stump by the dam. Pointless and impotent, not like this. The father looked around at the sea of neighbours, townsfolk, and someone's uncle from Wangaratta. He spotted the bottle cap with a fish on it just next to the fire. The fish caught his eyes and winked. It didn't have to say anything. You can be lonely, but you don't have to be alone. That'd look tacky on a billboard, the fish quipped. That's perfect then, the father retorted. He pondered a moment before taking the cigarette held out to him, an arm draped around his shoulder before the irreverent click of the lighter, the men moving away to avoid smoking out the kids. He took a long drag, dirty lungs, before letting the smoke coil skyward into the breath of eucalyptus leaves from the gum tree above. It was the deepest breath he'd taken all day.
Well, I love this piece. It's astonishing writing. What aspect of the original text were you really interested to explore in your work?
Within my creative response, I sought to mirror Elizabeth Tan's ability to employ articulate detail and description to aid the capacity of her world building. She referenced everyday things embedded with Australian lifestyles to create realistic and genuine representations of life in Australia. I sought to engage with Tan's sensitive portrayals of loneliness and shallow consumerism in Smart Ovens for Lonely People, exploring these themes in regional Australia, contrasting late capitalist loneliness with moments of residual human solace. Tan's text sees the anthropomorphism of inanimate objects, which I also employed with the Great Northern Fish. And then similar to Tan's story Nico Oven, where Tan regards outsourcing human intimacy to marketed products, the fish, inherently a capitalistic artefact, becomes a source of advice for the father, a gently probing confidant. Inspired by the Nico Oven story, I characterise the fish as very pragmatic and matter-of-fact. The short-sighted words employed showcase the stark disconnect between human emotion and technology, something I wanted to exacerbate by the solace provided by the neighbours at the end of the story.
Thank you so much. I mean, I said I love that story. It was so evocative. There's this motif of gum trees that run through it. I really commend this story to you. Thank you so much, everybody today. we have come to the end of this, and I just want to thank all of you, all of the readers today, and all the students who contributed to this anthology and whose works lies within the pages of this wonderful publication, which I'm holding upside down. It's wonderful to get a sense of what's waiting for you in the anthology. I hope you enjoy it. And so that concludes the formal part of today. This is dedicated to the wonderful top Scribe writers today. I want to say one final congratulations. I'm sure you'll each go on to have very successful careers in whatever you choose to do. I also want to dedicate this to all future and current students of VCE Literature who may be watching, and we can't wait to see your submissions for 2027 and beyond. And of course, to the teachers in the audience and those watching online, we want to thank you for your work with these students and all the work you do for education in Victoria. The 2026 Top Scribe Anthology is now available on request in digital and limited print copies. Just head to the Top Scribe page on the VCAA website and you can order yours. For those of you who are in person with us today, please stay and join us for morning tea at the Wheeler Centre. Can I ask, though, that all Top Scribe authors, including those who didn't read today, so anybody who's Top Scribe author, can you come to the front steps because we're going to take some group photos. Thank you, and enjoy your day, everybody. Thank you for coming.